Hello, it's Jeta. I think most of us have experienced deadlines and exams, and during that period of time we have to do work. We don't have a choice, and sometimes when you really don't feel motivated, it's really hard to actually get yourself to do focused, productive work. So I thought I would just share a couple of tips, almost kind of like a routine of sorts that you can do when you're not feeling motivated. You don't need to do all of these things. You could just do 1 or 2, or you could do 5 if you're feeling particularly unmotivated. But I just thought I would share this because someone did actually request this video a while back, so I thought I would share it now since it's kind of exam time for a lot of us. So the first thing I would say is just make your workspace more inviting. So clean up your desk, clean up your room, just declutter it and try to make your workspace as inviting as possible so that when you sit down to work you really want to sit there, if that makes sense. You could also decorate it with some things that motivate you, or have some candles on your desk, add some flowers or something, just to kind of make it as cozy and warm as possible so that when you are working you want to be there, essentially. I'm in no way saying go and deep clean your room because that would take ages and you probably don't have very much time, so just give it a quick declutter, a quick dusting or whatever. Basically just make sure that you have a clear space to work at, essentially, and add a bit of candles and decorations if necessary to add to the space and make it even better. So kind of leading off from that, get dressed into some smarter clothes. It can be really tempting, especially if you're at home, to just wear some really comfy clothes like a hoodie or something, but I would say wear something slightly more formal. I think that getting your brain into the mindset of work is also a physical thing, so if you are dressed kind of more smartly or in clothes that make you feel really good and your room is really clean, those two things together will just change your mindset, and so you will feel like, okay, now it's work time. It really doesn't need to be anything fancy, just something that you feel comfortable in but also feel good in and motivated in, if that makes sense. Like something that will really just make you feel like, yes, I'm gonna get a lot of stuff done today, and that could be whatever you feel like. So yeah. So the third tip is something that works for me, might not work for everyone, but that is to watch a study with me, preferably a short one, so that you don't take up too much time. But sometimes seeing someone else working really hard or being productive can make you want to replicate that. So yeah, watching a study with me can be quite helpful in changing your mindset. I have a few on my channel and they're all, I think, under 5 minutes, so they're quite short so that you don't spend too much time watching. But honestly, just watch whoever makes you feel motivated and productive. Alternatively, you could also watch a real-time study with me, either a live or just a real-time one, whilst you're working, because it can feel like you're studying alongside a friend in that aspect if you are struggling to focus. So that is another thing that you could do. Again, does not work for everyone, but for me at least, I quite like the sound of someone else's pen or someone else's typing or just breathing. I don't know, it's really strange, but sometimes it can feel like you're not so alone in the tedious work that you have to do. So yeah, I would say possibly do that. I have been meaning to film a real-time study with me, so if you would like to see that, then please do let me know, because I just don't really know if people would want to watch that. So yeah. The fourth tip is also very important, and that is to get yourself some water to stay hydrated, get some snacks, some tea if you like drinking tea, or coffee, whatever you enjoy. But yeah, just having something to keep you energized throughout your work so that you don't lose energy is just really important, and this can also make you feel a little bit more prepared, especially if you've got a really long task ahead of you. You won't have to get up and go and get something in the middle of your work if you are suddenly really thirsty or hungry, because that can disrupt your focus. So I would say get everything you need before sitting down, and this can really help to make you motivated too sometimes. Tip number 5, if you're doing some work which is perhaps not as focused, so work that you can definitely listen to music at the same time for, I would definitely recommend listening to some music. So there's loads of study playlists that you can find, you can make your own, and this can again get you into the mindset of work. So if you have a set playlist that you use every time you study, your brain will associate that music to motivation and being focused, so that can help as well. Last year I had this study playlist which I played every time I would sit down to do really intense work, and automatically I would just be focused because I think my brain just kind of connected that music to just getting on with work. So it kind of made me more motivated and just kind of almost switched my brain into that mindset immediately just by hearing that music. So kind of similarly to that, I would say find a quiet space to work. I know this can be super difficult, especially if everyone's working at home, but do try and find a more quiet space so that your brain has the ability to really focus without any distractions. And if you are finding it difficult to do that, then put on some headphones or earphones, because that can kind of just drown out the noise. I have to do this sometimes because my sisters are quite loud, but other times I will do it just because sometimes putting on headphones almost kind of isolates you from the rest of the room and everything else that's going on. So you can listen to music while doing this. Sometimes I won't even play music, I'll just put my headphones on, and it can almost add a layer of focus to my work. This just works for me, it might not work for you, but give it a go because it might help. So the next tip is kind of once you've sorted yourself out, you know, you've got everything you need and you've done everything you can to get yourself motivated, write a to-do list. Just write a list of tasks, even if it's just one task that you're trying to get done. Break it up. So for example, if you have to write an essay, break it up into introduction, first paragraph, second paragraph, etc. By breaking up the task, it will just feel a bit less daunting, but also you can tick it off, and so every small accomplishment feels like something, and that can just boost more motivation because of this small achievement. And sometimes just writing a list of things to do can just make things seem so much more manageable, so you will just be more likely to want to actually sit down and do work. So then, once you've written your list, set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes and just work really focused in that time. Ignore all distractions, try not to let your mind wander, just be super focused and tell yourself that you're only going to work for 5 to 10 minutes and then you can have a break. And more often than not, you will not even need a break. Once you kind of get into that flow, it's really easy to just keep going. So it will be better not to give yourself that break, but just telling yourself that you have that option of another 5-minute break afterwards will let you start, but then once you start you kind of just get into a flow, and so more often than not you won't even need that break, and you will find yourself working really productively. But yeah, if you don't really want to set a 5-minute timer, or you have and it's over, then set a longer timer so that you don't overwork yourself. You know, don't really work for longer than an hour just sitting down. Make sure that you're kind of breaking it up and walking around in between. But you can set this timer on Forest. You've probably heard of this app before, but basically plant a tree, and if you leave the app and go on something else on your phone, then the tree dies. And obviously you don't want the tree to die, so it's basically to try to minimize distractions. But you don't need to have this app, you can just use the timer on your phone. And yeah, that's just an idea, but just setting a timer so that you don't overwork yourself, but also you can see the end. It's not like you're just working for hours and hours. You know that there's an end, which can also make you kind of want to work in the first place. And the last, it's not really a tip, but just get to work. Sometimes doing all of these things can almost seem like procrastination, and it's really important that you don't turn it into procrastination. Really, this is just these tips are trying to get you into the mind frame of work. But at the end of the day, you just have to do it. There's nothing that can give you motivation but yourself. You just need to decide that you need to do the work and just get on with it. Sometimes it can be really difficult, especially if you are not in the mental headspace to do work or are just really exhausted. And normally, if you're feeling like that, the best thing to do is just leave the work. Do it a bit later when you are feeling better, but obviously if you've got exams or deadlines and this is not possible, then you can use these tips instead if you really have to do work. Obviously, you don't need to do every single one of these tips because you would be spending a long time doing all these things instead of working, but these are just some things that you can do if you're not feeling motivated to work. And I use these tips myself. I won't do everything, but I will do a few of these things, especially if I'm really feeling like I don't want to do any work. So yeah, I hope these tips helped you in some way now that everyone seems to have exams all of a sudden, so I thought this would be a good time to film this. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye!